Have you heard about the FIRE movement, Steve? Does it ignite any interest in you?
The FIRE movement? Oh, right. That's the acronym for Financial Independence Retire Early, isn't it?
It is. It's all the rage among mostly young tech industry workers these days. The basic idea is to lay aside a nice retirement nest egg by calculating compound interest over, say, 40 years.
Good for them. But I'm afraid that's not for me. I'll probably never fully retire. I like doing what I do.
I understand that to be firing means cutting back radically on your expenses in order to save as much money as possible. At the same time, you're supposed to put together a portfolio of investments that generate enough income to enable you to support yourself.
That sounds like a very rational, well-thought-out life plan. But given the sky-high cost of living here in New York, it would be pretty difficult to maintain that kind of minimalist lifestyle without moving inland. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy who watches his nickels and dimes when he goes to the grocery store.
The old rules no longer apply when you're talking about retirement. They were designed for an era when retirement was considered a release from bondage, liberation from a lifetime of work. Back then, most members of the workforce were engaged in manual labor.
It might be time to retire the concept of retirement. When the Social Security Act was passed in 1935, the retirement age was 65. The average life expectancy was 61. Now it's just under 80. That shows how outdated our whole concept of retirement is.
I was surprised to learn that nearly 20% of Americans 65 and older are still working, and that number is expected to increase.
I'm not that surprised, actually. Close to 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. People seem to have lost the habit of saving money, sad to say.
Maybe, but long stretches of unemployment, the housing crash, helping family members who are experiencing financial difficulties, and mounting student debt are some of the reasons why it's increasingly hard to save enough for retirement.
That's the harsh reality for many people these days, isn't it? If you can save for retirement, though, the big question is how much money you should set aside. Personal finance experts say you should save 8 times your pre-retirement annual salary if you want to retire by age 65 and keep enjoying a lifestyle in line with what you're used to.
Many experts think that continuing to do work that you love, that you feel passionate about, past what most people would consider retirement age, is a good way to increase longevity. I can definitely see how it would add to your quality of life. I mean, I'd be bored out of my skull if all I had to do after I turned 65 was weed the garden and play the occasional round of golf.
Having a sense of well-being and purpose helps you keep going, doesn't it? It's been shown that people who continue working into their 70s and beyond are healthier and stay more socially connected. But it's difficult to say whether healthy people tend to keep working or whether work keeps us healthy. In most cases, it's probably a combination of the two.
When you get right down to it, it's a question of mindset. Too many of us think of work as a kind of burden, something to be liberated from. Instead, we should replace the whole idea of retirement with a third act of life, where we create value and receive value for things that we love to do, and which give us a sense of fulfillment and meaning.
I can get behind that. On the positive side, it's worth noting that there are expanding opportunities for older workers. More employers are hiring part-time consultants and other temporary workers to complete projects and replace expensive full-time staffers.
Whatever your plans are once you hit what's still considered retirement age, it's important to stay connected with the wider community. An active social and family life is vital for your overall well-being. I plan to wind down a bit work-wise when I get older and devote more of my time to volunteer activities, for example.
I'm glad to hear that. I see too many people become isolated and cut off from the wider world. That's not healthy. It's vital to maintain and develop friendships as you get older. We need the emotional support that friends can offer when we experience stress or other problems in our lives.
Good friends are a positive influence, it's true. They help us follow healthy habits and reinforce our sense of self-worth. People with solid, long-lasting friendships have more empathy for other people and are more trusting and cooperative.
Yes, as we get older, our family and our network of friends give us a sense of purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, if you like.
That's a very good way of putting it. I don't know what I'd do without the emotional support of my family and friends. No man is an island, after all.
Another point worth mentioning is that it matters what kind of work you do if you choose to keep working past the usual retirement age. Work that involves a lot of stress and places unrealistic demands on your time is not a good idea.
The challenge is to find a happy medium between leisure and productive activity. I came across an interesting way of describing the growing number of baby boomers who are reaching retirement age, perennials.
Some people might not go for that term, but I like it. Perennials that keep on blossoming and growing despite the passing years.
How about vintage, as in a fine old wine?
That's good too. It's definitely preferable to elderly or senior citizen. Everybody gets old, but most of us don't want to be called old or perceived as old. That makes it hard to find an acceptable term.
Well, whatever label we choose, the main thing is to try to keep on growing mentally, spiritually, and emotionally as we grow old. There's a lot of truth to the old adage about age being nothing but a number.